Ooh, already 70 people. Hello.
Hello.
As you all are coming in, you can tell us where you're joining from. And if you are up to it, you can tell us one way you like to express yourself.
It doesn't have to be an academic way of expressing yourself. It can be something fun too.
For example, I like to dance. And I admire people who are better at expressing actual emotions while they dance. Things that communicate better to others, but works for me.
Ooh, someone else from Wisconsin in the chat, and welcome.
Got a karaoke singer, and that's pretty fun.
Love that.
Always enjoy that. My wife doesn't enjoy when I do it, but that's okay.
Uh, Someone else that dance baking. Fun. Right. And
Life
painting.
should be more like a musical. I
And
agree. I tell my
Hello.
daughter, when you go into high school, just make sure it's like High School Musical, and you'll be fine. You know?
is this a call for us to do like City Labs, the musical? Like our next webinar is only in song, everyone.
Oh no,
I can't sing, but
me
I can lip
neither.
sync. Okay.
All right, hello and welcome everyone. We'll get started in a moment, and while you're settling in, tell us in chat where you're from and a way that you like to express yourself. So it doesn't need to be academic, it could be something fun.
We've already had some great answers in the
Yes,
chat, so keep them
cooking,
coming.
baking, trail running.
Ooh, singing songs in American Sign Language. I love that. So cool.
Interesting that there's such a variety, Stephanie.
It's almost like multiple means of expression is awesome or something. All
All
right,
right. Do you think we're ready to get started?
I think so.
All right. So before we officially get started, we'll jump into some logistics. So we are recording this webinar and we'll also share it along with some links to some useful resources as an email within the next couple of days. And you're welcome to use chat throughout the webinar. We love a lively chat. However, if you have specific questions, please submit those in the Q&A feature in Zoom. We don't want those questions getting lost in our very lively chat. Alyssa and Claire are going to be monitoring the Q&A area and will answer as many questions as they can during the webinar. We also hope to have a few minutes at the end of the webinar to answer some questions live. If this is your first time joining our fun, let me tell you a little bit more about Cidi Labs. Cidi Labs was founded out of a partnership with Utah State University, where Kenneth Larson, our co-founder, was working as an instructional designer. He was given permission to hack Canvas and started making the first iteration of what would later become DesignPLUS. Over the years, our team has grown with educators and instructional designers, as well as former customers who are now drawn to improving the learning experience for everyone. We have 6 products for Canvas, from accessibility to course lifecycle management. All these tools have been developed in close partnership with universities and, of course, our customers. Today we'll be showing off DesignPLUS, our must-have design suite that makes creating engaging content for Canvas possible, affordable, and fun. So let me introduce you to your presenters for today. Stephanie is our product marketing manager and the primary researcher behind our Design Matters and Accessibility Matters blogs and webinars. Ethan is our director of DesignPLUS development, so he's one of the amazing people behind the design magic that you'll see today. And I'm Jess, one of the customer success managers here at Cidi Labs. We have other Cidi Labs team members also on our call today, and if they haven't already, they'll say hi in the chat. Our webinar today is part 3 of 3 of a series on building universal design in Canvas. If you missed part 1 and 2, you can find the recordings on our webinars page. Today, we're focused specifically on building learner-centered action and expression opportunities. Before we dive in, I want us to do a little exercise in true universal design for learning fashion. I don't want to assume that anyone here is starting from the same place, so instead, this is our third UDL session, and I'd like to give everyone the chance to reflect on your familiarity with UDL and today's focus principle of action and expression. So we're going to launch a Zoom poll for you to answer, so you don't need to navigate away to Canvas right now, but then show you a readiness check example of how you could do this in Canvas if you wanted to. So you can use the poll to let us know. Do you know all about multiple means of action and expression? Do you need some details about multiple means of action and expression? Do you need an overview of universal design for learning before we get into any specifics?
Be interesting to see how this all shakes out. I don't know how many of you have been with us for our other two parts of our series.
While we're waiting real quick, this graphic you see on the screen here is a content block that's part of the DesignPLUS library, which we'll talk about later on. So this is actually taken a screenshot of Canvas.
That's right. We'll flip over and use its interactivity in a moment when we see our results. I think they're about to pop up for us now. Okay. We had about 36% of you were like, I know all about this. I'm super ready for design ideas. Don't worry. If you see on the screen we're showcasing here, we could select this item. This is something you can use in your course, as Ethan mentioned, using DesignPLUS. And so if that were you, don't worry. We'll share strategies and showcase ideas just like this readiness check throughout the webinar. If you were in the group, and this was our largest set of responders that you needed some details about multiple means of action and expression, you might choose that you need to review this principle. And again, sounds good because we are going to break down 3 key concepts and actionable strategies for this specific principle today. We won't leave you hanging. And if you were in that final group and need a little bit of a refresher or an introduction to universal design for learning in general, you might, if you were working in Canvas, choose learn more about UDL. In our case here, don't worry, we're going to kick off the webinar with a quick overview of universal design before diving into today's specific focus. And just so you all know, Ethan mentioned this block is available in the DesignPLUS library. It looks like this. It has pre-built buttons here to go to the quiz, go to extra practice, or message the teacher. But as you can see, you can customize this block for your own use.
Awesome. Thanks, Stephanie. That was fun. And again, part of our DesignPLUS library. So let's do a quick rundown of universal design for those who didn't make it to our first couple of UDL webinars. In a nutshell, UDL, or Universal Design for Learning, is an educational framework designed to make learning accessible and effective for all students. The idea of universal design originated in architecture, and one of the clearest real-world examples is the curb cut. Curb cuts are essential for people with certain disabilities, and they also benefit many other people who don't strictly need them, including parents pushing strollers, people riding bikes, travelers with rolling luggage, or people with dogs with super short legs. When we design with access in mind from the beginning, we create environments and exercises and experiences that are smoother, simpler, and more usable for everyone. Universal Design for Learning applies this same philosophy to education so that instead of retrofitting accommodations after students struggle, we design courses to be flexible from the beginning. There are 3 core principles in UDL. The first one is multiple means of engagement, which was the topic of our first webinar, and that focused on different ways to motivate and involve learners. The second is multiple means of representation, which was the topic of our second webinar, and that one was all about different ways to present information. And the third one is multiple means of action and expression, and that's today's topic, and that focuses on different ways for students to show what they know. Now that we're all caught up, Stephanie, do you want to lead the way forward?
Sure thing. Now we're going to be thinking specifically about how to incorporate universal design principles in Canvas. And when that's the goal, there really are two separate but related components. There's the idea side, like creating or adjusting curriculum, lessons, and assessments to incorporate those principles. And then there's the building side, which is actually like putting those ideas into a functional design in Canvas and trying to do so without being some kind of coding wizard. And so in this three-part webinar series on building universal design in Canvas, Cidi Labs, that's us, our focus will be on building those elements into Canvas. However, we don't like to leave anyone hanging on the idea side. And I can tell you there's like no shortage of resources for learning more about universal design and finding incredible lesson or assessment ideas online. And in fact, we even had a special guest join us in the first webinar in this series to be a nice touch point for the idea side. So you can review that webinar if you missed it. But we will be showcasing ideas, such as utilizing that readiness check, right, at the beginning that helps learners engage in metacognition while we demonstrate how to build those experiences in Canvas. And I want to take a quick pause because I remembered I forgot to mention something. We said that block was in the library. And if you got the link from the chat to go to the library, if you ran into a login request, we're aware that there's an issue right now with Canvas public courses, sometimes requiring a login. We've notified them and are letting them know we're experiencing that issue. But if you get a link from us today that's taking you to a course asking you to log in, there's something going on with public courses. So hopefully we can get to the bottom of it soon. But thinking about that, what is our focus for today? Today, we're talking about the third core principle in universal design for learning, which is designing multiple means of action and expression. So action and expression is about how students navigate a learning environment, approach the learning process, and express what they know. So in any course, students, just like you all coming to the webinar, bring different prior knowledge and experience, access needs, and ways of processing and communicating their learning. So from a UDL perspective, action and expression means offering multiple ways for students to move through content and demonstrate learning so that barriers are reduced before they become obstacles. This can include ensuring content is accessible, providing choice for how learners complete and submit an assignment, modeling and supporting various note-taking and knowledge-checking strategies, and helping learners reflect on their goals, challenges they might have faced, and successes throughout the learning process.
That's awesome. Yeah, action, Stephanie, I was thinking with this learner action, accessible action, I love action movies. And so I certainly hope our webinar today has lots of intense car chases and explosions and just, blowing stuff up.
Thanks for bringing this up, like right in the middle of the webinar, Ethan. Like I'm supposed to just adjust everything we're going to talk about today and you put on glasses. Like I didn't bring glasses, okay? But you know what? Actually, here's the problem with your idea, Ethan. That's actually the opposite of how we want our learners to feel, right? Like we don't want them to feel like moving through the course or expressing their learning is full of nearly insurmountable challenges, right? Like
Yeah,
some challenge is good. We know that. That can be helpful for their brains, but not the disabling a bomb before the timer runs out kind of challenge, right?
fair enough. Okay.
Okay.
All right. I get it.
Gosh. Well, now that it's clear we're not designing for an action movie feeling, what are we trying to design for today? Our webinar today will focus on research and actionable strategies to design for the following in Canvas: accessible action, progress monitoring, and choice in action and expression. And with those research-backed practical strategies, we'll also showcase how our tool DesignPLUS makes designing for these goals easy and fun. Now, to be clear, this isn't a training session, right? So we'll be showing a lot of what's possible and not the tiny details of every little how-to. But I do want to say that when you license our tools, you have access to amazing training resources and amazing customer success managers. Shout out to Jess, who's here with us today, who help you turn the ideas into reality in your courses at your institution. So hopefully today's showcase proves inspiring for you. Ethan, can you get us started on the first topic today?
Absolutely. Let's start with accessible action. No, not the Arnold Schwarzenegger type of action. Sadly, there will be no choppers in the presentation, but this is pretty basic. If there are actions that we want our students to take with our content, then we need to make sure that all students can access that they're able to complete those actions. Um, by ensuring that all actions are accessible, the course becomes better for everyone, just like, the curb cut effect that Jess explained. So another example to online learning, captions. Many students that don't necessarily require captions benefit from the presence of captions on videos. So this could also be as basic as the way we present information to students. Or it could be more complex, like video captions or interactive learning exercises that we want students to complete. If these are actions they need to take, all students need to be able to access it. Also in this section, we're going to look at the role that navigation plays in making course content easier for students to find. When I was teaching elementary school and as an instructional designer in higher ed, in my experience, just helping students know where they are in a course, online course, what they've done, what they still need to do, is so helpful for students and their parents to feel good about the course and their ability to succeed in the course. So feeling lost is a surefire way to inhibit the learning process. So we'll take a look at navigation, the importance of navigation, and some strategies for that too.
And I'd love to just jump straight to the research, but I don't know if you've been seeing the reactions people have been using, Ethan. There's like a chopper. Someone did like the cinema, like action, anyways,
I'm
thank you
telling you,
all for joining
I'm
us in
telling you, we
our
got to
first.
lean into it somehow, Stephanie. Come on.
I love that our customers and audience members like to have fun with us. Thank you all. Okay, on to the focus. I think a lot of people in our audience today can resonate with some of those examples you were sharing, Ethan. And research on providing multimodal learning helps add some more meaning and strategy to your example. So, first, research has shown that universal design principles improve outcomes across diverse learners in a variety of ways, but especially with the ability to engage with content at their own pace and in various modalities. Learners become essentially empowered actors through universal design, and they're able to control the learning elements to best support their understanding. Now, when thinking specifically about creating learning experiences in a learning management system like Canvas, research reminds us that Canvas actually serves as a solid foundation for accessible, WCAG-aligned learning experiences and universal design opportunities. And this makes sense because the Canvas Rich Content Editor has a lot of formatting options that support all learners, including those using assistive technologies, helping making those various actions required in a course accessible. The research then, kind of in a nutshell, reminds us that building universal design experiences in Canvas supports our learners, particularly when done thoughtfully. So what does that mean to do it thoughtfully, right? Let's talk strategies. You're here for the hard strategies. First, we can't encourage this enough, but lean on Canvas when you're developing your content and assessments. It may be tempting to like link a PDF as your assignment instructions, but doing so likely reduces the accessibility of that information and misses out on some cool opportunities for leveraging many of the robust elements for increasing usability for all learners. If you're adding any kind of interactivity or external tools for engagement, I know there are so many cool ones out there. It's critical to ensure, though, that those interactions can be performed with a variety of tools and devices. CAST specifically mentions including mouse clicks, keyboard navigation, and voice commands. Many tools will have accessibility information readily available, so you could do a quick check on some of your favorite tools that you use in your Canvas courses. And as Ethan pointed out, supporting accessible action often means reducing the challenge of navigating to another relevant space in the course. One way to do that is to simply use links throughout the course that aid learners in moving in more than that basic kind of linear previous and next fashion. So does your assignment say, perhaps, review the chapter takeaway page before completing the assignment? Well, rather than having the students have to select previous like 3 times to get back there or jump to modules and manage the long scroll and all those modules, simply linking that page supports the desired action, right?
Yeah, that it reminds me when I taught online, I've discovered that a lot of students would load their dashboard in Canvas. They'd see the to-do list, they'd click the quiz or assignment, go straight to it, and probably bypass a lot of the stuff that they needed to do previously in the module or whatever. And so I found that it was really helpful on the assignment description or in the quiz description to explain these are the things you should have reviewed, link out to it. Just try to really support learners no matter what avenue they've come to the assignment. If that makes sense.
I think this is becoming even more relevant because Canvas is releasing like a new dashboard that students can control like what they see on their dashboard. So this may increase, right, the ways that students are just plopping into a space without maybe being taken in the context. So that's a really good point. Yeah, nothing though earth-shattering here in terms of strategies, but accessible action is the foundation of this entire action and expression principle. So it's worth us like pausing and thinking through this, right?
For sure. Yep. So there are some challenges here, creating accessible action in Canvas. Interactivity, it's going to sometimes be difficult and compete with accessibility. And
Wait,
this,
sorry, Ethan, I gotta interrupt you because
okay.
now that you're describing this challenge, like this is totally a situation that feels like an action movie. There are all these challenges to implementing UDL in Canvas that our designers and educators are overcoming with a tool like Design Plus,
Right,
like
right.
real heroes. Okay, I have a request for you. I'm
Okay.
wondering, can you start over that part that you were just saying, but like read it in the voice of the famous movie trailer narrator Don LaFontaine? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. I was born for this, Stephanie.
Okay, the glasses are back.
In a world where action is reduced to previous, next, and mark as done, where interactivity competes with accessibility, a tool rises up to support accessible action in Canvas. This summer, that tool is Design Plus.
We didn't have the budget for real sound effects, Ethan, but that voice was spot on. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah, okay. All right. But I guess it's time to maybe roll the tape or show everyone what we mean when we say Design Plus makes it easy to create opportunities for accessible action. I'll hop over into Canvas now. Let me go to a blank page. All right. So when you're creating content in Canvas, you can edit the page and you can use the rich content editor. That can be helpful for setting up some accessible movement for your learners. But Design Plus takes this to a whole nother level. I've got the sidebar launched here, the Design Plus sidebar, and I'm going to go ahead and just toggle full screen so I have a nice viewing space for creating this accessible content. When you're building in Design Plus, if you're less familiar with it, you can simply apply a theme and it's going to give you a heading that I love is set automatically at a heading 2. So when I select into that, I can see that it's a heading 2 in the Canvas Rich Content Editor, which nests that under the automatic heading 1, the Canvas page title. And if I wanted to continue to add content to this page, I could add a content block, and that's going to generate another accessible heading for me. So if I place my cursor in here, I can see that that nested heading, right, that sits under that kind of main page heading is at a heading level 3. So you're getting some of this accessibility built right in for you as you're working with this tool. Now I can edit the the information here. I could say, okay, this is going to be the introduction, and I can select from over 2,500 icons to pair with this. So maybe I want some kind of open book icon. And again, the way that this is all coded is to make this experience accessible for all of our learners. So we love that. And we can continue adding other various content blocks and even just ones that are kind of simple all the way up to ones that are quite robust. So if I just go into this general category, I could see I can add something like the objectives. And I didn't even have to type objectives or look for an icon that fits with it. These preloaded content blocks, again, are still helping with that accessible action by providing those accessible heading levels. They're also giving me the style and the support right away. I could add instructions, I could add help. And again, these are just kind of simple ways to support your learners. And it's not just supporting those who maybe need those heading levels coded if they're using, say, a screen reader, but it's for all of our learners. A little bit of color and visual weight goes quite a long way for all of us in managing our cognitive load. But we also talked about helping learners with their navigation, right, in like a non-linear fashion. And so maybe I had a variety of links that I was trying to provide for my learners. If I am using Design Plus, there's a whole set of navigation elements that I can add. And I'm not going to show you every single one of them because there are so many. They're very cool. But maybe I wanted to do, like we mentioned earlier, with putting like a link list to some resources that students might need to complete the assignment or that I might have referenced on the page. So if I add this link list, I'm going to get a set of placeholder links here ready for me to edit and update the text on and the links on. And I can change the style really easily if I want them to be like pills that are vertical, or if I want them to kind of look like tabs or run across. And what's cool about these is they're set up not using a table, which can be an accessibility issue because it alerts like a screen reader user that there's a table and they're expecting some kind of tabular data and it can kind of impede navigation. These are set up in columns and they're ready to go. Or I can add some other really helpful navigation elements like a progress indicator. And I love this one. You can use kind of the standard progress indicator that's just like a running bar that I've done maybe 2 out of 5 elements, or that's where I am in the module. But I really like the ones that allow me to jump around. And so I'm going to go ahead and choose this icon progress bar. And if that weren't enough, all of our Design Plus elements are built with accessibility in mind. So we also have a variety of new interactive exercises that allow you to add elements for your learners to engage with that are built with accessibility in mind. So my learners, if I added this cool like sort item, this is built for those actions we mentioned before where someone can navigate using a keyboard or mouse clicks, right? And so there's a variety of ways that they can do them, even though it appears to be just a drag and drop option. There's more behind it. So let me just save this page so you can see that progress indicator in action and kind of see that sample. Here are those links that were set up like tabs. You know, I can obviously change out the placeholders. Here's my progress indicator. Now this page looks crazy, like you wouldn't design all these things one after the other, but notice how I can hover over each of these elements and see where I am in the module progression, or easily jump back without having to go to the modules page and deal with that overwhelming modules index. And as we mentioned, there's drag and drop functionality here, but there's also keyboard navigation, so I can move around using tabs, etc. So we hope that this provides you some inspiration for how you can design for accessible action right inside Canvas.
Love that, Stephanie. So that Design Plus demo was jam-packed with a lot of amazing ideas, and now we're shifting gears into our next topic, which is progress monitoring. As an instructional designer and professor, I always wondered if my efforts in making those interactives was worth it. I love that they're low stakes and ungraded, but at the same time, I always wish there was some way to know whether students actually did them. And thanks to Ethan's hard work on the Student Interactive Data Tool, I could finally monitor my students' progress. So as of, I think, last Friday, I now know that 8 out of the 10 graduate students in the course I'm teaching this semester interacted with the 33 interactive exercises in my course. I also know that the average score for those interactives is about 72%, but when I look at the breakdown, I can see the scores for most of them are about 90 to 100%, with a couple that are much lower. So either students were just guessing on those ones, or I asked confusing and bad questions, probably the latter. But for the most part, it seems that students are engaging with those interactives and doing pretty well on them. I also know that students are enjoying them because, well, they tell me that they like them in their module reflections. However, it's possible that my wonderful instructional design students already know that getting formative feedback via these interactive exercises helps them monitor their own progress effectively and enables them to use that feedback to guide their own effort and practice. But if my students' experiences aren't enough for you, I'd love for you to share your numbers with me so that we can get a better look at how those interactives are being used. So watch for a survey from us in late April when the spring course term is winding down.
Yeah, we'd love to know more. I think Jess's experience is great and seems to suggest that learners are utilizing and finding value in practice opportunities and in monitoring their progress. But what does the research say about this concept of progress monitoring? The first quote on the slide explains that in order for meaningful learning to occur, students need to organize the multiple representations of information, like our last webinar, into a coherent mental model. And then they have to integrate that with their prior knowledge. So what does this mean? It means that students are taking all the representations given to them, but there's work to be done organizing and connecting all those dots in order to effectively store, retain, and retrieve and reuse the learning. So how can you support their cognitive process? Well, the second quote reminds us that scaffolding that encourages learners to construct their knowledge enhances learning outcomes. So think of this as providing models, prompts, or interactive exercises, right? And other activities that promote active learning. If students only ever passively take in information, they are less likely to retain it, right? They're not doing all of that behind the scenes work after they've been exposed to the information. And as some of you might have guessed, research tells us the reality is that without models, prompts, or activities, most students won't perform these metacognitive activities on their own. So we can construct ways to help them with that. And the good news is that scaffolding supports their ability to perform those tasks long term on their own, especially if you utilize some gradual release strategies. So that would be the goal, right? We want them to be able to like do these on their own out in the world when they're learning new information. But how do we build these kinds of active learning, reflection, and progress monitoring opportunities in Canvas? Let's talk strategies. First, we want to leverage ungraded formative assessment options. Why? These provide students with this no-stakes situation, and it exposes them to active learning and reflection strategies that they can employ. And it helps them experience the value of those kinds of activities intrinsically, since points aren't attached. They're not focused on performance, they're focused on practice. Another great way to support learning progress monitoring is through layered feedback. So we know personalized feedback on individual assignments is amazing, right? But it is also time consuming for instructors. And for learners, the feedback often comes like after a task has been completed. And that might mean they aren't immediately applying that feedback to support their active learning. So think of the layered approach. Add auto feedback to those no stakes kind of quizzes or activities. Think of providing group feedback that identifies patterns in places like discussions or on a module page. And then those strategies save time for individual personalized feedback on other activities. One, because maybe the students are making fewer errors or maybe they're more readily meeting the standard that you set. And for two, because you were having those other pieces maybe more automated or in a group. And remember, this is key. It's great to vary the types of progress monitoring and self-assessment opportunities so that learners are exposed to various strategies and they may grab hold of ones that best support their learning to employ in the future, which is the ultimate goal. I don't want to have to like give them an interactive for every single thing they ever learn for the rest of their life, right? But if we expose them to more, they hopefully find some that are useful to them. So you can try using checklists, written reflections, selectable options that match a level of understanding, multiple choice opportunities, or write-in quizzes. I mean, the list goes on, right?
Those are great strategies, Stephanie. Before DesignPLUS, I was using Canvas quizzes and asking students to respond to announcements, and both of those feel a bit more formal than what I was really wanting. Just students to engage with the content, you know?
Yeah.
Sounds like another challenge in implementing this in Canvas. Sounds like it's time for another movie trailer. Perhaps Stephanie, you'd like to favor us with your rendition?
Is this what I get after asking you to do it? This is the payback. All right. In a world where students ignore suggestions for reflection, where creating one more Canvas quiz will send instructors over the edge, a set of DesignPLUS interactive solutions emerge to support student progress monitoring in Canvas. How did it?
Excellent. That
Okay.
that was amazing. I think I'm out of a job now for the
I'm
moving forward.
gonna I'm gonna be honest, it's not my first time doing that impression. Seriously though, Ethan, can you show us how Design Plus helps support progress
Yes,
monitoring in Canvas?
absolutely. I would love to. So let me go ahead and pull this up here. All right, so what we're looking at here is a Canvas page that's been designed with Design Plus. See, it's laid out really nicely. This is for a language arts class, teaching about a poem, perhaps they're in a poetry unit. And as we scroll down here, we can see some inputs. So this is a tool that you can use in Design Plus to create things like checkboxes that students can interact with. And these are not graded at all. This is just for students as they're consuming the information to help them process it. So we also can add text areas where you can type in your thoughts about whatever you're reading or whatever you're thinking about. Um, and we have, these are really cool quick checks, which are like multiple choice that allow you to mark things as correct and even provide specific feedback to students based on what they select. So those are all a few just basic examples. Here we also have a content block. This block layout is part of the Design Plus library as well. That's where I grabbed this from. And using links to remind students of what they should have already studied in order to complete this comparison. So we can link directly to things. And here's an interactive for this poem that allows students to memorize the poem by asking them to fill in the blank. Each level, it gets a little more difficult as they go, and eventually they'll have the entire poem memorized. Or doing memorizing poetry through ordering, the lines in a stanza or whatnot. So these are a couple other really cool applications for some of those interactive exercises that provide some feedback to students. This one is just radio buttons, so a student can select kind of either or on this list and decide which of the two poems they like better or feel like do more with this. And of course, places to take notes. And here's a flashcard. This is just a placeholder. I'm actually going to go in here and show what it's like to develop one of these interactive exercises using flashcards as my example. So I'm going to go down to my flashcards placeholder here. And in order to save some time, I'm actually going to use one of our beta tools. So this is only available if your institution has enabled it and if you have beta tools features enabled. So this is called the flashcard generator. And I can type in a prompt like put the famous poem on the front and the poet on the back. And have some options here of grade level, language, how many cards do I want it to generate. And so I'm going to do that. And through the use of AI, which is detailed here and has a link to more information about how that works, it provides me with a series of poems and poets that I can select and then add my flashcards in here. I don't need these placeholders anymore, so I'm going to replace them and I'm going to add those flashcards in. So now I have this set of flashcards that my design assistant helped me to generate. Thank you, design assistant. And then I can do things, of course, like rename and reorder and delete or add more. I have different styles that I can do. In the advanced panel, I have different means of students checking their answers. So I can have no checks. And in this case, students are just using them as flip cards and, very low stakes. I can use self-check where a student quizzes themselves and do I know the author or the poet here? Oh, yes, I knew that. And they can go to the next. Oh, this is Robert Frost. This is the one we're studying. And yep, got it. And then the other is called an input check, which requires students, this is the toughest one, they have to type in the answer and oops. And then they can check. And this type of flashcard will actually, when they complete the set, send the data to the interactive data tool, which is really exciting. I want to show you. I saw there were a couple of questions about that. So inside of course settings, this is a different course, by the way. This is not the same poetry course. The course settings has what we call the course sidebar, and the course sidebar has a few different types of tools. This is another beta feature. The interactive data tool will summarize all of the attempts on the different interactives that students have engaged with. And it's all anonymous. There's a note with information about that here. But when you review it, it gives you a summary of all of the interactives that have been engaged with in your course, ordered by the last attempt to date. So your most recent stuff will be at the top. And then you can see a snapshot of the entire course and obviously filter if you have lots of different interactives that you want to look over. And if you want to see the details on one item in particular, you can click on it. It shows you information about that. Has a little preview in case you forgot what was this. Oh yeah, this is the one where they match the Cidi Labs tool to its description. Got it. And here we can see more granular results for each of these. So on Cityscape, 16 of my 28 total attempts, 53%, I can see that maybe this is something, this is going to inform my teaching that I need to make sure people know more about Cityscape. So each interactive type has different data. Quick check was one that where you have the multiple choice radio buttons, and you can see that the correct answer was selected most, but I did have a couple of misconceptions here. And I even have further details and visualizations at the bottom related to these different attempts and stuff. So this is a really powerful tool that Cidi Labs, we're at DesignPLUS, we're really excited to get in more into the learning design elements so that we can continue to offer features that, you can design well, not just the navigation and the layout and then beautiful courses, but also very engaging courses that have all of this type of data now available too, that really make those interactive exercises come to life and that much more meaningful. So this is in beta currently, but will be available shortly as a general availability. And so that's what I wanted to share there. Back to you, Stephanie.
Remember to unmute. I've been forgetting to do that quite a lot. Yes, and to clarify, when Ethan said it's in beta, if you turn on your beta access in your settings, you should be able to access those. So it's not like a secret beta, just so you know, or someone was asking in the chat. All right, everyone. We are continuing on with our last segment for today. We've got one more topic, which is designing for choice in action and expression. So choice is one of those like core concepts that you find throughout the Universal Design for Learning guidelines, because it just reminds us that offering options puts learners in the place of agency, right? So for choice in action, you can think back to our first topic today, where we mentioned that Canvas primarily supports a linear student action progression. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? But it is just kind of limited. And so what does it mean to design for more choice in that action progression? And for choice in expression, we can think about how to support assignments with multiple ways for students to demonstrate their learning and how to design for that in Canvas. So let's first ground ourselves in the benefits of choice. That first bullet point acknowledges that there's a research base showing that learning environments that support autonomy and provide choice are linked with increased learner engagement and motivation. However, there's an accompanying issue when we consider designing these situations. Providing choice often comes with the addition of more content, more information, more links, keyword more, right? And the problem with more is that it can be easily overwhelming and distracting, which creates these cognitive overload scenarios. And that can confuse your learners. Like, that's the opposite of what we're trying to do. We're trying to empower them, not confuse them. So we need design strategies that allow for choice opportunities without those trade-offs. And we want them to be flexible designs to keep learner autonomy intact so that students are truly choosing from options.
Yes, so giving students choice is great, and meeting them where they're at is also great, but actually designing this can sometimes be difficult. So let's talk about some strategies here. Mastery paths within Canvas is one way to meet students where they're at and direct them to resources accordingly, but that doesn't really give them the choice. Instead, the instructor or course designer is making that choice for them that they need more or less content. The first important strategy you can use in DesignPLUS is to let students self-route without locking them into a single path. So this gives students the freedom to choose what works best for them and their unique needs. Second, when doing this, you want to keep the core content in one central location and then place any extra choice activities on another page or a dialog box if it's something smaller. And this helps prevent confusion and avoids overwhelming students with too many options all at once. Finally, for choice-specific activities like letting students choose whether they want to submit a paper or a video or audio file, consider providing option-specific instructions. So if you could use interactive elements like tabs or expanders to make expandable sections, to make these instructions clear while reducing that cognitive load.
In a world where choice turns into chaos, where agency becomes endless scrolling, DesignPLUS easily combats cognitive overload in Canvas.
We didn't give anyone any warning that time. We're just going right in. And you know what, Ethan? I actually think
Yeah.
you and I should tackle this final level as a team. And you know
Okay.
what?
What?
Just for you, I've got a little surprise.
Okay.
Here's your chopper.
You shouldn't have, Stephanie.
I
There
know,
is a chopper in this webinar. Wow.
turns out.
Okay. All right. Well, I need a cool code name like Ghost Block or something
All
like
right, Ghostblock, you take the first demo. Go for it.
All right. Can't see the screen hardly at all. Hang on a second. Didn't really think through the
Regular glasses for design teams,
practicality
not
of yeah.
sunglasses.
Okay. First thing I want to show you this really cool feature in DesignPLUS. When we're talking about simplifying navigation and the way that students view and work through your content, what better way than this really cool DesignPLUS feature called full screen? This allows students to tune out all of the Canvas UI stuff that might get a little distracting or whatnot. And so when you click on this button that you can add through the advanced theme tools, it takes your content and makes it the full page. So it looks more like a nice website here. So here on this page, I've got a series of expanders for students to read through the information. I used my design assistant to help me generate, and then I can edit this content. And then a nice tabs structure that's sort of designed to look like a slideshow almost. And I'm using that to house all of my different interactive elements so that students can interact with these, check, move on to the next one, and so on. And so a really cool way, this is a library block as well. If you're interested in these types of tab structures, we have a few different options. In our most recent content blocks page, you can see down here towards the bottom, here are some really cool slideshow style tabs that you can use in your online courses, including the gray one here. All right, and then another cool thing that you can add as far as choice, allowing students, rather than maybe the rigidity of mastery paths where they have to take an assessment and they have to be evaluated and they're scored, and then based on that score, they're assigned automatically to one path or another. You can add more simple, choice cards, choose your own adventure sort of thing. So after working through this content, how are you feeling? You need more practice. Maybe this takes you back to another page to review. Maybe there's additional resources if you want to keep learning more or view enrichments. Or maybe you're ready and champing at the bit to move on. This is another library block that's already all designed for you, and then you can just kind of customize what you want it to do and where you want it to go. So it's very simple, and students appreciate that they can then sort of be put in the driver's seat of where they go next. This is another page that I designed with a few different features related to what we're discussing. First one I want to point out is another navigation feature. So here we see the icons navigation that Stephanie demoed earlier. This one is called a side navigation, and it just lives there and kind of sticks on the side of the screen as you're working. But when you click on it, it gives you a view either of the module you're in or the page you're on with the page headings, or in this case, the entire course. So I can navigate to any module in any page in my entire course. It shows me where I'm at. And this way, I don't have to go into the uh, Canvas modules screen and try and find where I am, where I'm going. So this is a really nice and easy way to improve navigation for students wherever they're at. Something else I wanted to show in the way that I designed the content here, I used tabs to take the original text content for my students. And as a former fifth grade teacher who had many students that did not read at a fifth grade level, this is a cool strategy to offer this same content, but in a more accessible way by simplifying the reading level. So this way, I have students that are reading through and working through the content. They can select the tab, and perhaps I even have a series of reading levels. But in this case, I just have one that's much easier to read and still gets them the important information, because later on I'm going to be asking them about this. So that's another great use of tabs to provide accessible content to students. So as I'm going through, I've got a nice little, just a quick check here to fill in the blank. I can pre-program in the feedback. So as Stephanie mentioned earlier, this is something that I can automate. If I find that students are, not understanding this time frame, I can add this in here, and I can put in the feedback for what if they get it incorrect. So that way, by the time they arrive at the quiz or the assignment, they've already, worked through that without impacting their grade at all. So they know that these things are not stored in the Canvas gradebook. They're all fully accessible. These things can be done through keyboard navigation. And the teacher now has that data from the student who answered this to see exactly how our student's doing with this in an anonymous way. Okay, and here's another example of simplifying the text. AI is very good at this, by the way, taking text and finding a way to simplify it. But of course, you'll want to read through and check it, make sure it's accurate. This is another library block, the phone sort of frame that you can put content inside. I needed my 15-year-old to help me write and translate this, but it allows students, again, just a real quick, like, where do you want to go next? Do you like this style of music? Yeah, I think, yes, I do. That's what this means. Choose send, and then great. Go check out this really cool playlist that's got a bunch of different examples. You might find some of your next favorite songs in there. Or perhaps, no, thank you. That's what this means. Then in that case, you're good. Let's move on to the next style of music and see if you like that more. So by adding in a nice, simple quick check, there's no right answer here, right? But we can direct them based on their response to a simple question like this. And in this case, presented in kind of a fun, interesting way for students. All righty. And I think that's my time for that. So back to you, Stephanie.
Oh, is it my turn? This
Your
was like
turn.
final level situation
That's right.
going on here.
Final boss.
Woo! Okay, so Ethan was showing some like choice in action, right? And allowing students various ways to move and have that choice. I want to talk a little bit about choice assignments because I loved doing choice assignments when I was an instructor, but they'd easily got like completely out of control and confusing when you try to like provide all the instructions for all the choices and all the options. And so we've got some design magic to help you with that. First, just orient yourself. This is kind of a simple page. I tried to show you earlier how you can create like these pages that just have these simple headings like instructions, grading, and a space for then maybe choosing the project. What's really great is, as we've said hopefully many times so far during the webinar that you've heard, there are things that are pre-built to support you in this using DesignPLUS. So I'm going to go ahead and edit this page. And I'm just going to show you one example of how you can take maybe your existing assignment and add some of that choice functionality in a way that manages learner cognitive load. So I've got DesignPLUS launched. I'm going to toggle full screen for our easy viewing here. And say I've got this like choose your project section here on my page. I'm just going to go ahead and look through the content blocks actually that already exist and see if there's a good option. So I'm editing this content block. I can come down and look through the templates that are available to me. Now, my institution can build templates. I can build them for my own course, or I can find ones that are already designed in the DesignPLUS library. And so I'm just going to select from one that already exists. So if I go to the cards area, you'll see that all of these are just from Cidi Labs, right? Like we've just created these and given them to you. And you can see that this cards structure is a nice way to set up choice. And this is particularly helpful when the choice instructions aren't overwhelming. There's not a lot of specific instructions for each choice. You're really just kind of showing an overview of the options. So you could use those colored cards. You can add some images with it to help learners have that multiple representations. I like the simplicity of this library cards option, and even though it comes with a button that I might not need, maybe I could use that to route them to a page with more instructions, but I really like the visuals of these icons. And so I can just select those library cards, and now that's on this page. I can provide some introductory text that lets them know, choose from one of the options below, right? And I can swap out these icons in the same way that I would inside the sidebar. So this is already built for me and customizable. And just for time's sake, this is like the baking show, although I've never seen like an action themed baking show. We are going to jump to the next and just see a few of these examples pre-built, pre-baked, ready to go. So maybe it looks like this. You updated those library cards to say that the students can choose their project submission type. You've got a slideshow option, a written report, and a video. Again, there's not a lot of like extra information that perhaps this instructor is giving them. Maybe they kind of know the drill. Maybe they've experienced this. They don't need that extra scaffolding. But there may be a scenario where you need to provide more information to your learners, and this would become a long scroll, right? Like putting a bunch of information in a card just becomes this narrow, long thing that I don't love. So maybe I would employ something like accordions here. So same thing, the learners can choose, but when they expand the accordion, they see information specific to creating the slideshow. So maybe they're getting the details of the instructions for their slideshow. They're finding resources specific to creating a slideshow, like shout out to Slides Carnival that I used a ton when I was in grad school. And then here, maybe a video that's accompanying it related to building a slideshow. I always had this phrase when I taught high school English, no more ugly slides, and I would help my students learn what that means. And so here I would probably have put that like nice and large, how to not make any more ugly slides, and so on and so forth, right? You could do that with the written report, and it just keeps that information nice and tidy and helps manage cognitive overload. We have the ability to do these in tabs as well. You've seen some vertical tabs options, but as the design nerd we all are, here's why I don't love this particular example quite as much. It gives screen time to one option over the other two. And so what I really love about accordions in this particular example is that it gives equal weight to these options rather than saying, okay, here's the slideshow information. Maybe you'll go check out the written report or video. You might not even notice it's there. So that's a big, why behind we love these webinars is just giving you some of the nuances in these elements. So hopefully all of that has given you some inspiration for your own choice assignments. And that wraps our demo portion for today. We've covered some practical ways to design for accessible action, progress monitoring, and choice in action and expression, all right inside Canvas, and how DesignPLUS makes that process a whole lot easier and even fun.
Now that we've wrapped up our action-packed adventure, we hope that if you do not currently use DesignPLUS, you'll want to also feel like a course design action hero yourself. So you can learn more at cidilabs.com, or you can scan the QR code on the screen as well to sign up for a demo. And as we're wrapping up this three-part series on building universal design in Canvas, we want to walk the talk and give you all a chance to consider what elements of the UDL guidelines you feel most familiar with and what you might want to explore further on CAST's website. the organization behind those guidelines. So use the link in the chat to interact with with the sorting activity using DesignPLUS.
And if you have any trouble with the login screen, a reminder, we said that at the beginning, it's a public course and we're getting a little bit of trouble there, but this is just a place for you to go play with some of those interactives. We were also told that we had a few questions about beta features on how to enable those in DesignPLUS. And so let me just bop back over to that assignment really quickly, because if you're chomping at the bit to see some of these beta features, again, they're available. You just have to like choose to see them and be aware that like some of the little kinks are being worked out, but you can certainly be a helpful feedback provider for us in that. So if I were to edit a page and launch my DesignPLUS sidebar, I can head over to the More Options element here in that main navigation and go to my user settings. And then I can scroll down in my user settings to enable beta tools. And that's just a selection you can make. And so then you would also be able to access not only those student interactive exercises that you can put onto your content, that also allows you then when you go to your course settings, so you hear that if you're looking for that data, the data that Ethan was showing, you would then go to your course settings and launch the course-wide sidebar. So it's a sidebar that lives at your course level on your settings page, and you'll be able to find the interactive data there. So hopefully that's helpful for those of you who were like, I need to learn more. Hey, someone said that worked. Yay. All right. Any other questions before we? Oh, it's time. It's time. No more questions. The movie done. Credits rolling. We are out. Just kidding. Just so you know, like Cidi Labs is super responsive, sometimes to a fault. So reach out with questions. We're happy to see you in the next webinar. Bye, everyone.
Awesome. Thank you. See you guys.